Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I'll be taking a look at the Rapoo VT7 Max Gen 2 wireless gaming mouse and giving you my thoughts as to whether or not it's worth the money. As always, chapters to each section are listed down below. And before I get too far into things, a quick disclaimer that this mouse was sent to me free of charge from Rapoo in exchange for doing this video on it. However, anything I say here are my honest thoughts having now used the mouse over the past week and a half. Now, starting with the basics here, I'll go over the box contents in a moment, but what we're getting here is a $60 gaming mouse that is packing a really solid set of features that you would typically see in mice that are much more expensive. So this has 8K wireless polling, it's got support for up to 30,000 DPI with the ability for you to go into their app or the web driver and configure separate settings for the X and Y axis. You have optical switches supporting 120 million clicks, you've got multi-device support, and there's an 800 mAh battery paired with a Nordic control unit, enabling up to 750 hours of battery life. Now, diving into the box, obviously I've already got the mouse and the USB dongle out, but when you do get the mouse out, just be aware that there is this protective plastic on the bottom, so you'll want to make sure to peel those off so that you are properly able to glide the mouse across your desk pad when using it. So opening this up, it's all very well packaged and you got some nice reflective coloring on there. So obviously this is where the mouse would be. Now taking this out here. So the USB dongle will be right in this dongle attachment here. I haven't had a need to open this up for any of the other accessories since I got it because I just plugged the dongle right into the USB hub I have right next to my mouse, so I didn't need the cable. But we've got a reasonably long USB cable here. I'm going to guess this is looking like it's going to be about 6 feet. And we also have some replacement mouse feet here if you want to swap those out. Is this some grip pad on here, it looks like? Nice. So they do include right in the box some like some grip pads for if you want to just add a bit of extra grip to the mouse. I had to do that with my Pulsar X-Lite V3 large, and I had to go out and buy that separate for, I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks. So that's adding, a good bit of value to this if that's something you want to use later on. In the week and a half or so that I've been using this, I haven't had a need to go and put the grip tape on. I have, right now the coating feels fine, but that is nice to know that they are including that as an option right in the box. And some extra feet, which is, right there. You normally have to go out and spend a little bit of extra money to go and pick up the extras. So that's adding some additional value to what is already looking like a pretty solid deal. Now, as I head into the build quality and feel, the two mice I have on hand that I've actively been using when doing my comparisons are the Pulsar X-Lite V3 Large and the Endgame Gear XM2W 4K V2. The XM2W has been my main since August, and the X-Lite was my main for around a year and a half before that. Now, I tend to like palm or claw grips when using a mouse and have had no issue swapping between these three. The X-Lite does have a more pronounced hump as it is an ergo mouse, which you can see it's much taller there. But against the XM2W and the VT7, like the hump is further back on the XM2W, and the VT7 is, I'd say, between the XM2W and the X-Lite when it comes to the height. So for me, with how I tend to hold a mouse, like I've not really had much of an issue with this. Now, when it comes to the price points of these other two, it is worth pointing out that the XMW2 and the X-Lite are in a completely different price tier. The XM2W is 130 bucks, and the X-Lite was 80 bucks for the mouse, another 20 for the 4K dongle, and then 10 bucks for the grip tape, so 110 all in. And At that price point, that's basically two of these VT7s, and the build quality of this, like just holding it, I'm not experiencing any creaking. I'm not noticing any blatant weak points. The only negative that I've had really is just the plastic on the bottoms, clearly not at the same level as the top plastic, but does that really matter for day-to-day use? No. And at the bottom here, there is a spot for the USB dongle. There's also an add-on that you can get for a charging dock. And feature-wise, this does also have two additional buttons on the top here. And you can go in with the software, which I'll talk about later on, and reprogram those to be whatever you want. So, the build quality of this, the feel, it's perfectly fine. And it's really not that far off some of the mice that I've paid twice the price for. So yeah, when it comes to the build quality and feel, it is certainly passing the bar. This is really solid, especially at this price point. And next up is a sound comparison between the Rapoo VT7 Max Gen 2, the Endgame Gear XM2W4K, and my heavily used Pulsar X-Lite V3. And heading over to the software, there's both a downloadable application and a WebDriver available for the VT7. WebDrivers are nice as they allow you to change the settings directly through your browser without needing to install anything. Both options do have the same interface, and thankfully, they do feature a dark mode. Now, for the web interface, this might pop up in Chinese for you. To fix that, just go to the top right, that little gear icon, then the second option over at the left, and you should see English there. And then that will make it go to English for you. But diving into the software, you do have profile support, so you can have separate settings specific to your work and game applications and swap between them as needed. And for the mouse itself, you've got the separate X and Y DPI settings like I mentioned before. So if you want to have your X-axis move a bit faster while retaining the slower Y-axis or vice versa, you can go through and do that. So that just gives you the ability to customize to whatever is going to best suit your use case. And then we have key remapping, and this will let you go in and customize any of the buttons on the mouse to do whatever you want them to do. So the two middle buttons on the top of the mouse, those are DPI plus and minus. And you can set those to be a variety of different keys. You can do key combos or macro. So what I'm going to do here is just Control C, hit apply, and then Control V on the other here. And that's just an easy copy paste combo. So if I'm in Excel and for whatever reason, I just want to go in and copy paste this cell, I can do that real easily without needing to hit anything on my keyboard. So you can go in and do stuff like that if you want and make your life a little bit easier. And jumping over to parameters, the application will let you adjust your Windows pointer settings here, along with various settings like sensor angle for the mouse. This is one page where the WebDriver does fall short, as the WebDriver isn't able to communicate to Windows. The WebDriver is only talking to the mouse. And on the Performance tab, this is where we can change the polling, key scan, and engine rate. This also presents us with an estimate on the battery life that we'll get out of those settings. And with the 800 mAh battery this mouse has, you do not have to charge it anywhere near as often as most other gaming mice. If all you want is decent performance without needing to charge this thing for weeks, then the fire setting with the 1K key scan and pulling rate is all you need. I put in a week at those settings and was right around 90% battery left by the end of the week. So if you get this mouse, those are the settings I would recommend. But if you want to move things up a little bit, this mouse does support up to 8K wireless pulling rate and key scan rate, though your battery is going to be significantly impacted by doing that. However, the battery on this, even with these maxed out settings, I have found that this at 8K is lasting longer than some of my other mice that I've used, like the XM2W, running at lower settings. So the battery on this thing is really quite insane, and it makes me feel bad about some of my other mice purchases. Now, as for the pulling rate difference here, I don't know how well YouTube is going to show this to you guys, but basically, the higher your pulling rate, the more often it's looking to see where your mouse is. So you just get better tracking with the higher pulling rate, but you may need to adjust your DPI to compensate. Now, if I lower this back down to 4000, you can see the mouse is still on the screen there when I'm doing the circle. It's still on there quite a bit, but not quite as much as it was at 8K. And you can see the circle's a little bit tighter at 8K because it's just pulling it so much more. Now, if I go down to 1000 hertz and do the same thing, you see the circle is much bigger because it's just, it's not keeping track as much. So it's good to have those options. Both of those more expensive mice I have cap out at just 4K pulling. Now, personally, I don't find the 8K pulling does much for me in gaming, so I just leave everything at 1K to get more battery life. But it's good to have the option there for if I do want to do that in the future. And to wrap things up, is the Rapoo VT7 Max Gen 2 worth the $60? Well, based on my experience with it so far, the answer is yes. This is a complete package that is able to hold its own and offer more features than the mice that I've spent twice as much money on. For instance, both the XM2W and the X-Lite V3 I have only have a Windows application to change their settings. With this, you get both a Windows application and a web driver, allowing you to change the settings right through your browser without needing to download any software. In addition, this has 2 additional buttons on the top, which you can reprogram right in the software to be any key combo, or macro that you want. As I showed earlier, I use those for a Control-C and Control-V combo to easily copy-paste in things like Excel. And for gaming, this handles competitive games like Battlefield 6 with ease, with no worry of the battery dying out in the middle of your match, even at 8K pulling. They advertise this battery can last for up to 750 hours, which is of course at 1K pulling with lower performance settings. When you're at 8K, you're not going to be getting that high of a battery life, but still, even with me turning everything up to max and playing some Battlefield, after a day, it only dropped down to 84%. Using this mouse made me sad about my more expensive mice, as the VT7 Max Gen 2 is simply blowing them out of the water with this battery performance, and it's doing it while weighing just 53 grams. And a secondary benefit of this better battery is that it should improve the lifespan of the mouse as there's less charging cycles to go through. I used the 1K pulling with 1K key scan rate in the fire high performance setting for a week with a mix of work and play usage, and there was still enough battery left that I could have kept using it without recharging the mouse for several more weeks. So to sum it up, this is a pro-grade wireless mouse that gives you the competitive edge in work and play, without draining your wallet. And you can get it a few bucks cheaper using my affiliate link and the discount code, which are in the pinned comment down below. If you have any questions about this mouse or experiences with Rapoo products you want to share, please leave them in the comments below. But that is it for today. Thanks again to Rapoo for sending the VT7 Max Gen 2 over for me to check out, and thanks to all of you for the continued support. See you all around.